Good afternoon, everyone in the virtual and real world. However you divide them, my name is Miriam Stark, and I'm currently the director for the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And it is my great pleasure, in fact, to introduce the stellar panel here to talk about Balinese performing arts in Hawaii. If I can just turn the podium over to Rohayati Pasang, she will moderate this session. So please join me in welcoming everyone.
Thank you, Miriam. Selamat sore. Good afternoon. It is really nice to be in this room and to be able to join this distinguished speaker. I want to extend my sincere thanks to Center for Southeast Asian Studies, to the East West Center, Theater Program and Ethnomusicologist Department. For today, we will be focusing on a few highlight performance projects over the past 10 years. And that is since I Made Widana took over the artistic direction of the Balinese gamelan, which is started in 2009. Today, we will focus on the work prior to COVID shutdown. And probably some of you remember that King of Bali, the last King of Bali was the last production at the Kennedy Theatre before the COVID started. That was in February 2022. Now the ensemble is just beginning to resume rehearsal and activities, so it is an exciting time to reflect on the work as we begin to launch ahead. Before we go further, I would like to introduce the panelists. I started with myself. My name is Rohayati Pasang. I'm the Southeast Asian Studies librarian here at the UHM Manoa, but also I have the honor of serving as the shadow light operator during the Subali and Sugriwa, an experience that is really amazing for me. I have here Mr. I Made Widana. He is a lecturer at the Department of Theater and Dance at UHM Manoa. He is also artistic director of UHM Manoa Balinese Gamelan Music and Dance Ensemble. And we have Annie Reynolds. Annie is an exhibition and collection curator at the East West Center and also an assistant director of UHM Manoa Balinese Gamelan Music and Dance Ensemble. Next to me, another one is I Made Moja. Pak Moja, a San Francisco Bay Area-based Balinese visual artist. He's a painter, he's a dancer, and he has been artist in residence on numerous projects in Hawaii since 2013. On far left from me is Kirsten Parker, a Southeast Asia theater professor at UHM Manoa. She's also the director of Southeast Asia Focused Asian Theater Program Productions. Last but not the least, Eric Chan. Eric is an arts program coordinator at East West Center. He's also an assistant director of the Asia Pacific Dance Festival. He has facilitated Balinese gamelan performance and also participated as a musician and dancer. So before we go further and dive into our highlight production, I would like to invite Annie Reynolds to talk a little bit about the Balinese performing arts in Hawaii prior to 2010, since we are going to focus it in the last 10 years.
Mahalo, and terima kasih, Bu Yanti. I'm really happy to be here sharing today. So before we kind of dive into our more contemporary work, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the work that came before ours, because I think it's really to acknowledge those that make the work possible and what came before us. While it may not be a comprehensive history because it's too long of a history to be a comprehensive history, it would be the entire day. And there's always more to learn, but I think it's very important to recognize. So I want to say that today is possible because of the rich history of the UH Manoa environment, really related to both the Asian Theater Program and to the Ethnomusicology Program, to the work of pioneering professors, including Ethnomusicology Program founder Professor Barbara B. Smith, and Asian theater professors James Brandon and Roger Long. The UH Manoa is one of the few institutions that houses both a Javanese and a Balinese gamelan, and both ensembles are currently active at this time. The University of Hawaii Javanese Gamelan Ensemble is celebrated as the longest continuously active gamelan ensemble in the US. The program initially began with the arrival of the instruments in Hawaii in 1970 and has been active since that time. And at the current time, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. And of course, Rick Tremelios, in bringing the instruments over here, was marked in 2020, but celebrating now due to COVID. Then Bapat Haruja Susilo, both a musician and dancer, master teacher, began teaching gamelan in Hawaii in the late 1960s. He was the first gamelan teacher in the US and taught numerous students for more than 4 decades, providing them with an introduction to Indonesian culture through the arts. Many of the Americans who teach ethnomusicology or gamelan music at universities throughout the country and around the world first studied with or were introduced to gamelan by Bapak Susilo. In 1995, the former governor of Bali, Ida Bagus Oka, presented a complete set of Balinese gamelan gong kepiar instruments to the University of Hawaii at Manoa in recognition of the commitment of the university and Pak Susilo in advocating for Indonesian culture, especially through the performing arts. In the years since, the Balinese gamelan ensemble has been taught by many distinguished resident artists from Bali, including I Made Bandem, I Made Dibia, Ida Bagus Nyoman Mas, I Nyoman Sumandi, and I Dewa Putubrata, and that's just to name a few. So really an incredibly rich history, and that's really just kind of scratching the surface. The first time that the Balinese gamelan instruments were featured in a large-scale production at UH, as you can see on your left, was the performance Balinese Kecap Gamelan Topeng performance that was co-presented by the Department of Theater and Dance and the Music Department. EYN Dibia and Ida Bagus Nyoman Mas were the first guest artists in residence, and the project was directed by Roger Long and Harja Susilo. Another notable performance was a combined Balinese and Javanese Ramayana dance drama. In April 1998, the UH Gamelan ensembles created a Ramayana performance that was debuted at Leeward Community College. The first half of the performance depicted the abduction of Sita in the classical Javanese style, while the second half employed Balinese style to describe Ravana's defeat. The performance was directed by Javanese gamelan director Harja Susilo and guest Balinese director I Dewa Putubrata. So there's really just an incredibly rich history that's here. And then, is that okay? Okay. And then now we fast forward to the years that we're going to focus today's presentation on. And starting with a night in Bali. Made's been teaching at UH Manoa, has been here teaching Balinese music and Balinese dance, leading the ensemble since 2009. And it was in 2013, exactly 10 years ago, that we had a night in Bali that was featured at Leeward Community College Theater. It featured Balinese music and dance, theater, and traditional shadow puppetry, really kind of evoking the feeling of Balinese ceremonial performances. And it was the first time that we were able to work with I Made Moja here in Hawaii. And we also had San Francisco Bay Area Balinese dancer Casey Lee Sims as one of our guest dancers. So I think this was really an important production in the evolution of the kind of the current group, because it was the first time we really took on a large scale production under Made's guidance. Really incredible, because I think there were about 30 to 40 musicians and dancers at the time. And with the difficulty of kind of a community-based ensemble, we do have support from the university, but we're not, it wasn't through courses or classes, but to have this incredible commitment for the community ensemble to carry out this performance in particular. And because so much of the music and the dance that Made included in the production was really foundational repertoire for Balinese performing arts.
Yeah, so I remember going to Windward Community College to watch this program. And it is a huge production, a performance that reflected cultural and religious practice and incorporated music, dance, theater, shadow puppetry. It's really quite remarkable. So I guess I do have a question for both Mother Widana and Mother Moja. I guess the first one is I would like to know from Mother Widana, what was the significance of this performance for you as an artist from Mali?
Kalau boleh bahasa Indonesia.
So,
Itu kalau saya bilang itu berawal ingin memperkenalkan budaya Bali, juga proses orang berkesenian di Bali itu erat kaitan dengan kegiatan upacara.
so what Madi was saying that he really wanted to not only to introduce the Balinese art to the community, but also to show that Balinese art has a really strong connection with ritual in Bali. So, thank you. What about you, Pak Moja?
There was a really interesting production that I recall in 2013, and the events, the story of the night in Bali, kind of represent about cultures and dancing and music, and also like you said, like for ritual ceremony in the temples. So we try to combine that kind of performance to show to the audience here in Hawaii. And I was very pleased and with that kind of results, how people interest to see this older performance. So I'm really glad to be part of that production.
Thank you. Another thing that I think I would like to ask and to all of you, like, how can performances and the arts be utilized to teach or appreciate arts? Anybody would jump in? Maybe Christy, you like to say a few words on that?
Sure. So the Asian Theatre Program's mission is really to bring performing arts from Asia, and in our case from Indonesia, to a wider audience. And so I think performing arts are a great medium for that, because it's a really communal activity, right? So you're sharing as an audience, and I think, especially the Balinese arts that we've chosen between all these different people on the panel are like a really great opportunity to accomplish that mission.
May I ask one more question? Why Balinese arts outside of Bali, and what does this mean for artists from Bali to see their performing arts appreciated on stages outside of Bali? So I guess this question to Pak Widana and Pak Moja. So maybe Pak Moja, how do you feel as a Balinese artist and seeing Balinese art perform in a big scale?
Yes, and also arts and art performance especially is always they have some connection with the community. So whenever you be in, you always feel like some must be art involved. So since I'm moving here in the United States, I really miss that kind of communities. It's not just doing the arts or not just performance. You can perform anytime you want it, but to find the communities is kind of more interesting. And like here in Hawaii, so they have group and communities and also doing some arts. And then so many talented artists living here in Hawaii. And the same thing where I live in the area of San Francisco. So we do have some community like doing art performance, music and dance, especially Balinese dance.
So gimana Pak Made Widana, perasaannya, impresinya melihat seni Bali dipentaskan di pentas yang besar di luar Bali, Anda sebagai seorang artis yang dari Bali?
Kalau menurut saya, kenapa mereka belajar budaya yang kami miliki di Bali, musik maupun tari. Saya kira karena keunikannya yang menurut saya itu sangat berkesan, dan kenapa Wiji bisa di luar Bali.
Yeah. So Pak Made said that it's interesting to see the interest of the people studying Balinese art and acknowledging that Balinese art is unique and they're important to him, but also interesting to see how people wanting and willing to study. So that's his impression. But thank you so much. We don't want to take too much time because we have other things in the program. So I actually would like to invite Christine to introduce the next program, which is Battle of the Monkey Kings, Subali Sugriwa, which was the UHM Theatre production for 2015-2016.
Right, correct. But before we go there, we have to backtrack just a little bit because the very first wayang listic, or this modern style Balinese wayang show that we did, was actually the Balinese Tempest in 2008, in which Moja's work as a designer made kind of discreet appearance because he didn't actually come in person, but all his artwork was brought to Hawaii that he had previously made for the production of the Balinese Tempest by Shadowlight in San Francisco. So we brought the director of Shadowlight, Larry Reed, to Hawaii as a guest director to direct this production. And Pamoja had done all the puppetry and stage element design. And so he basically made kind of like a pre-appearance in Hawaii, not in person, but his artwork. And then that was a success. And we then followed up with the second wayang mystery production in 2016, which was Subali Sugriwa. So you can move forward on the slides. That used the same kind of technique that was kind of pioneered by Larry Reed and Mr. Moja in terms of using these shadow masks. You can see on the picture here where actors become shadow casters, shadow puppeteers with their own bodies, and these ingenious double-faced masks that work really well and have been basically pioneered by Larry Reed and Mani Moja, and getting refined and over time getting more and more sophisticated in their use. So you can see how the backstage area during that production, was set up. We had, for that production, we actually had the gamelan ensemble set up backstage, which was much easier for communication between the musicians and the performers. But again, the audience didn't see the live performance. So we decided for the next production to actually take the big leap to put the gamelan downstage of the screen. And then, we had to develop this whole sophisticated way of cueing and working with each other through the screen without having direct eye contact. So we had monitors and we had all kinds of other technical tricks to be able to communicate. So that was Balinese Tempest. And now we can move forward to Subali Sugriwa, which was the first major main stage production in the Asian Theatre program, for which we invited Mr. Moja as a designer and co-director. We also brought in Tut Widana as our master dalang or puppeteer and also dance teacher. And then of course, Annie and I, they were directing the gamelan together. And so this artistic team has proven to be a really good artistic team. We've done several productions together since then. The challenges, of course, of these productions is because it's a really big cast and we have limited time on stage for rehearsal. So typically we start what we call the boot camp training for students the semester before, where they take Balinese dance classes, Balinese puppetry classes. The gamelan definitely goes much longer than that, even ideally a few years to build up an ensemble. And then not only is it wayang-istic in terms of shadow puppetry with the actors, but we also have dancers in front of the screen. We have acting, we have puppetry with traditional puppets, with newly made puppets, and with those shadow casters. And here's in this picture, you can just see how the shadow is actually cast. So Pamoja's design, the painting in the frame is projected onto the big screen. And then the actors have to keep their eyeball on their own shadow on the screen, so they make sure that the image they're casting is correct, and the two characters that are, for example, portraying here make eye contact between the two shadow puppets on the screen, not the performers themselves, right? So that takes a lot of practice, months and months of practice to get used to basically have this permanent out-of-body experience while you're performing, because you have to really transport your entire character to the shadow screen. So it's for our actors, it's a really fantastic training that they don't get anywhere else. This is a really unique experience, and it really kind of enhances the toolkit of our people who are training to be performers. And of course, they also learn how to puppeteer, traditional puppets as well as modern ones. And then here's just one more shot of a production photo that shows all the dance elements and acting elements that would go on downstage of the screen in full costume. And of course, we have to make sure that the silhouettes and the shadow images of the characters look the same than the three-dimensional actor that comes out afterwards. So Pamoja kind of made all these amazing masks that would then really make that translation very clear of what character is who, from the small puppet to the shadow puppet to then the 3D actor downstage on the screen. Great. That's it for that part.
Perfect.
Throwing it back to our moderator.
Do you have a documentary, please?
Yeah, so on top of the entire academic year of the production, we were also producing at the same time a documentary through the Center for Southeast Asian Studies that was produced, and it runs about an hour and 15 minutes. And it was produced by Nazia Azmi, who was also a longtime learner of Balinese dance and studied and performed here for many years. And it was under the executive production of Center for Southeast Asian Studies. So we just put together some clips so it kind of carries you through the full process, but it's about 8 minutes from a full about hour and 20-minute long documentary.
What I really hope students will get out of it is to really learn how to fully commit to something, to always strive for like highest level of excellence you can in whatever your undertaking is.
Just we'll have it, we won't, you know, they'll know not to expect you and we won't bug you later. So it'll be okay. But if there anyone who doesn't receive email or who doesn't have it, you know,
To be able to work well in a team, of course, that goes without saying for all theater, especially in this production, the teamwork trumps any individual performance because absolutely every aspect of the show absolutely relies on more than 3 or 4 people working together, you know. I mean, that's true for most theater. Most theater is teamwork, but I think this show takes it to even yet another higher level in terms of how much teamwork is really required to make anything in this show work.
Menurut saya, proyek ini sangat bermanfaat sekali, ya, karena kita di sini khusus untuk masyarakat universitas tahu bagaimana tentang teater Bali, cerita apa yang dipakai untuk teater Bali itu sudah jelas dikenal oleh masyarakat universitas dan pada umumnya untuk masyarakat di Hawaii, yaitu bagaimana mengenal budaya orang lain. Saya lahir di keluarga seniman, yaitu dari kakek saya yang bernama Inyoman Kakul, almarhum. Beliau adalah seorang seniman yang luar biasa, yang dulu pertama kali dia mengelilingi dunia itu sejak tahun 1931. Bapak saya, yaitu Iketut Kantor, juga seorang seniman yang terkenal dan juga yang idealis. Begitu terus saya sebagai generasi ketiga jadinya dalam keluarga seniman saya. Sebagai seniman Bali harus diperlukan keseriusan. Karena sebagai seniman Bali atau seniman yang lain itu harus didasari dengan tekun dan ulet dan banyak belajar dari seniman-seniman senior. Pada intinya seperti itu.
I came to Hawaii from New York City. I'm a shadow puppeteer. I decided to apply because of the Theater for Young Audiences program and also the Asian Theater program. I thought it was great that the University of Hawaii at Manoa had both. And when I spoke with Mark Brenner, the head of the TYA department, on the phone, he said, "Oh, if you decide to come, we'll be having a Balinese shadow puppet show." And that was why I decided to come, was because of this show. If I have a first-hand opportunity to have this sort of training, that would be amazing. So that's the whole reason I came here.
The whole production has been really special to me. I had a friend visiting last week from the University of Chicago, and since I've been in rehearsal, he had to tag along, so I stuck him in the audience to watch the show. And we're at a point where the whole show is there. So he was watching the show, and afterwards he just said, "I had to keep reminding myself that this was a student production." It seemed so professional, and it's definitely something that I don't see in Chicago. Hearing someone from the outside not only express gratitude and amazement at the spectacle of the whole thing, at the level of mastery that he saw, at the quality of the show, but also it was amazing for me to bring something to someone that he might not otherwise experience.
In all the theaters in Hawaii, around the US, there will always be musicals. So Sondheim, there's Tennessee Williams, all the main European and Western playwrights and works, but you don't really get to see Southeast Asian theater, Asian theater. It's something that's unique to this program and something that if any other theater closed, Sondheim, Tennessee Williams, they'll still play somewhere else, but if this program closes, no one else will get it. And it's really incredible that we get this.
Yes, so that was a very, very big production. You have the gamelan, you have the dance, and you have movement, and you have the everything, puppetry. It's a huge production. And I remember sitting, watching from behind the screen, and how it seems so chaotic. But as always, at the end, it's come to really nice production. So I guess I do have question. The first question I have both for Madam Moja and Madam Widana. Madam Widana dulu, bagaimana proses adaptasi mengajar mahasiswa yang bukan orang Bali sehingga bisa mengerti nuansa gerakan-gerakannya atau suara-suaranya. So my question is that what is the process of the teaching, the learning process of teaching a student who might not even been to Bali or Indonesia, and then now they have to learn this Balinese movement, Balinese, voice and anything that related to this production?
Ya, awalnya mereka dulu ikut semester untuk kelas training di kelas belajar tari. Nah, dari sana akan dikasih penjelasan apa-apa yang dulu dipelajari, seperti belajar agam dulu, dan belajar cara jalan, belajar cara banyak di dalam koreografi seperti tarian begitu dikasih penjelasan.
So according to Pak Madam Widana, ini mata kuliah ya sebelumnya. Yeah. So like a semester before the production, he taught a class and a student how to the basic movement of Japanese dance, like he mentioned agam. I know. So which is really tricky. It looks very easy, but of course it's tricky. And then it was during that time that preparing them that this is the basic movement that will be used later on in the production. And he said he find that as a really good segue into teaching them more nuanced movement later on.
Ya.
Ada lagi yang
dan juga juga dalam paham setiap karakter, dikasih pemahaman kalau perempuan mungkin nggak sama dengan gerakan lakinya. Ada yang keras, ada yang lembut, ada juga yang sangat liar sekali. Itu dikasih penjelasan.
So in addition to teaching them the basic Balinese movement, there's also an element of the same movement, but would be different if they were performed by a female or male character. And that is very important in Balinese theater. Even though the movement looks the same, but men would perform in a more rigorous way, while the female is more halus or more refined way.
Dan juga kalau seperti dalam garapan itu ada juga bagian belajar, tidak hanya belajar tentang postur seperti manusia, begitu juga kalau bagaimana belajar seperti monyet atau binatang-binatang lain, itu juga dikasih penjelasan, elemen penjelasan cara ekspresinya bagaimana, itu juga dapat di kelas.
Yeah, in addition, in the same class, usually he taught how movement, animal movement, for instance, monkey movements, certainly is different than human movement. So that's introduced in that basic courses before the production.
Yeah.
Terima kasih, Pak. Pamoja, would you like to add a little bit about that? Because you are busy in drawing and doing things, designing things until the last minute. Yeah.
Yes, during that process, doing the design, set design, usually it's just the last minute to do it because during the blocking, the choreograph, the piece, we have to just blocking first. We talk in final design first, final scenery. So to make sure where the actor's going to be, and where's the puppet's going to be, and where's going to be the night scene. So we have to think about it too. So just so before we make a final design decision. So I usually just wait till almost like, okay, if we finish with this blocking, I can finish the scenery or even the puppet as well. So.
Terima kasih, Pak. Actually, I have a question for Eric. You dance. I remember you dance.
One time.
Yes. So, could you share with us your experience of learning Balinese music and dance, and how is it different from any other form that you have performed before?
Sure. Yeah, it was a great trip down memory lane here because A Night in Bali, that first production for this current ensemble was my dance debut. Maybe the first and last time so far.
Never say never.
But you know what? Just hearing everybody share really reminds me of the history of work that has happened at UH that these projects build upon, creating these environments for education so it becomes comfortable for people outside of the culture to bring their curiosity and respect into learning and learning in a way that's deep enough that they can represent and present on stage. I think it's so amazing, and that speaks to the long-time work of the ethnomusicology program and theater and dance, Asian theater in particular, to create these amazing projects for people to be involved with and to have these amazing teachers who share so generously with the public. So whether you're outside of the culture and community, you are welcome. And if you have some cultural connections or roots, you're just as welcome. So it was great being part of the community ensemble where there were people like me who kind of knew nothing, and then there are also students and community members who are from Indonesia, from Southeast Asia, who felt more at home, and it's added sense of belonging here in Hawaii to be part of the ensemble and the work. So learning music and dance for me is very much just making friends and just trying to keep up really with Mali Moja in particular, and that teaching style of just learning just to not ask so many questions and to just follow along and trust that process that the teacher is bringing everybody into. So the same way with the movement, it's just watching and copying, as best as I could, and feeling that there's this give and take, right? If you're serious about learning, then the teacher is also serious about teaching, and then the result of these larger scale productions becomes clear when that intent is brought fully to the stage.
Thank you, Eric. We move on to the next project, and so I'd like to invite Annie to introduce the Asia Pacific Dance Festival project, which is Ramayana and the abduction of Sita. I almost say Shiva. Sita. So this is a production in 2018.
Mahalo. So this was a large-scale collaboration between two internationally based Balinese gamelan ensembles. It was really a celebration of international gamelans with a collaboration between Otono Mori Gamelan Studio under the artistic leadership of Iputu Gede Setiawan and the UH Balinese Gamelan under Made's leadership. And really this large-scale production, you can see the entire team here. I would say in between maybe 50, over 60 musicians and dancers. Dalang wouldn't have been possible without this level of collaboration. And it was in 2018 and under the leader, it was produced by the Asia Pacific Dance Festival. Really was an honor to be able to do such a large scale production, especially particularly because it was the dance drama form, where when we're doing Asian theater productions and it's a combination of dance and puppetry, there's maybe less of an emphasis and time needed for the dance training in particular. But for this level, you really need dancers who've been training for years and years. And so the Otono Mori musicians and dancers had been working on this repertoire for years and wanted to collaborate with Made, and Putu wanted to collaborate with Made. So it was primarily their dancers and some of their musicians, some of our dancers, and primarily our musicians. So it was really a collaboration. We even had Keiki both from their ensemble and ours coming together. So rather than it just being our musicians, their dancers, it was neat that we had that integration on both parts. And you can see again, large scale production, full hour and a half of music. And I think they were in residence for about 10 days that we just were rehearsing every day together. So I have just a few clips again from a full production. There's just about 3 or 4 minutes here. And we started with a Baliganjur entrance. Yeah.
I'm so happy to see you again, my love. Sini kaguan majuan mengeksa.
I have a question for Made Widana, but I'm gonna turn to Eric first. Can you provide some background on the Asia Pacific Dance Festival at the East West Center?
Yes, of course. Asia Pacific Dance Festival, or APDF, began in 2011 as originally just a local stage performance sharing the multicultural diversity of dance in Hawaii communities. And then building off of the success of that one production and project from 2013 onward, it became a biennial project inviting international dance ensembles. The idea was to bring at least one group from the Asian region at large and one from the Pacific or Pacific Rim region at large to combine with Hawaiian hula on stage with a format that's typically 2 weeks of instruction, workshop, presentation, demonstration, and stage performance. And then in recent years combined with an academic conference component, sometimes with a culinary event sharing the food traditions of the cultures that are presented on the stage. So it's a lot packed into several days and a lot of cultures to represent as well. So it's been a lot of fun. And this production in particular was unusual in that it was an off year from the standard format, but wanting to continue the momentum of the APDF activities, we thought to focus on a local group, but then we had this opportunity to pair them with this group from Japan. And I immediately liked that idea because it was these two kind of international ensembles outside of the traditions that were, more community-based. And then just thinking about the connections of Hawaii and Japan and how there's so much interest in hula in Japan. And often you see that dance represented by Japanese folks here. Thinking about that within the Balinese tradition, there's kind of this representing the kind of the diasporic traditions that are preserved and modernized outside of Bali, and combining two groups like that in collaboration was just a neat opportunity for us to take advantage of.
Thank you, Eric. Kak Made Widana, bagaimana pengalamannya bekerja sama dalam produksi yang begitu besar ya, dan juga bekerja sama dengan artis dari Jepang, sebagaimana pengalamannya. So my question to Pak Made Widana, what did a large-scale collaborative production means for him, and his experience working with an artist both in Hawaii and, as an artist, Balinese artist in Hawaii and an artist from Japan.
Itu ceritanya berawal dari idenya teman saya Putu, katanya mau berkunjung ke Hawaii, Honolulu sambil
itu Pak Putu,
ya Putu Setiawan. Idenya mau mencoba buat semacam itu dan kolaborasi, dan kami sepakat bicara lewat telepon. Oke, kalau mau begitu kita lakukan, semoga bisa, dan akhirnya bisa.
Yes, so he says started with a conversation on the phone with Made Putu Setiawan. Yeah. What if we have a collaboration and come to Hawaii and work with you and produce something, and they say, hey, why not? You know, if there is such an opportunity, it's a great. So study from that kind of conversation. Yeah.
Dan berbicara kolaborasi dalam proses itu pasti ada sedikit mungkin susah berat gitu, karena apalagi beda dengan orang ya seperti orang Jepang, dalam komunikasi agak sulit, itu pasti terjadi.
Yeah, so I said it's surely, you know, there are a few challenges, and you know, you have a Japanese artist and you have a Balinese artist come from two different cultures.
Yeah.
So communication is one of the things that are a little bit challenging, but you know, at the end they work together.
Yeah. Dan kita coba mencari solusi yang terbaik. Mungkin membagi waktu gimana latihannya, berproses latihan. Setelah sudah jadi, lalu bagaimana nyambung dengan penari supaya komunikasinya bagus.
Okay, so the rehearsal is designed such a way that you know you rehearse the Balinese first, and then you combine them, and so it's a lot of step. Itu prosesnya latihan gamelannya, kemudian latihan tarinya itu beda ya, berbeda waktu.
Mungkin kalau yang grup tarinya orang Jepang kan sudah ya, dan mungkin dari Jepang dia di sini, baru kami bisa nyambung.
Okay, so they said for the Japanese dancer, they have the rehearsal in Japan, and then when they came to Hawaii, and then they combined with the Balinese.
May I add? Because what we had was recordings, and what's different from this than maybe one of the Asian theater productions that we looked at earlier is this is fully composed all the way through, 2 hours of music, how many times it's repeating. The full dance is fully choreographed. So it's really set, as opposed to, you know, you're waiting for a cue to happen and then we all go. So this entire piece was already preset. So we were listening to recordings before they arrived. And so we're listening, and then Made and Putu would be on the phone after rehearsals. Okay, we went this far, how about this? So there was a lot of communication that was happening when the group was still in Japan before they even arrived here. But yeah, and so you can see that it's fully kind of one set piece, as opposed to a theater piece that has a little bit more fluidity to it. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes it easier or more difficult.
No, I think because we have some idea about what to expect before the artists from Japan arrive.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Terima kasih. So maybe the next one that we are going to highlight is the last production of the Kennedy Theatre before COVID-19. And this is, so I would like to invite Christine to introduce The Last King of Bali, the 2019-20 UHM Asian Theatre production.
Yeah, so every time we bring Pak Moja to the University of Hawaii, the productions get more and more complex. There's more technical elements that you'd like to test out and introduce. So we went from like 3 lamps to 5 lamps to I think 9 lamps or 9 sources in this production in Bali. And if I now look at the first one string, it looks positively simple in comparison. So again, we had the same artistic team, and we had the same amount of like an 8-month training period that started with basic dance training provided by I Made Widana, and then once Widana arrived, he kind of took over some of that, collaborated in the dance training, and also had some basic alangship or puppeteer training with Mr. Widana. You can go to the next slide. I just want to see, you know, since we don't have Widana with us, he's the artist in the middle here. This was like the first opening night curtain call celebration after a successful first show. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to bring him back again for future productions. So on the next picture, you just see him also not just functioning as a dance trainer and a puppeteer and advisor, cultural advisor, but he also kind of took on the role of like spiritual guide and priest for some of the rituals that we needed to do to bless the stage, to bless the cast, to celebrate special holidays like Saraswati Day, which is the goddess of learning and the arts, which was like our patron saint, so to speak. And he would kind of explain, the larger context, the more spiritual components of performing arts to the cast, and we bless the stage every show before the actual show would start. He would go out and bless the stage and the cast, which is really kind of a great opportunity for our students to participate into something like that in real time, for real, instead of just reading about it. And I think that was definitely one of the more memorable moments and contributions that Patut did for us. And the next slide, we see I Made Widana training the cast. So the training, again, had every aspect, like Annie already explained, the dance would practice separately and music would practice separately. And then as these techniques get trained more and more, then eventually all would come together. And so one of the students called it scaffolding. And I think that's a really good term to describe how the process of these productions then eventually comes together. Mm-hmm. So just click through some of the other slides. So students got to work with the artists. For example, here they made their own little shadow masks just to kind of get used to how these work. And it takes a lot of time to just kind of work with your own body, but not look at your own body, but look at what it looks like on the screen. So that went on for like an entire semester. And on the next slide, I just want to talk about some of the technical complexities as Pamuja develops more and more amazing things you can throw up on the screen, to make that scene that the audience sees on the left in the screen here. It takes 12 people on the right to actually make it happen, right? So there's multiple puppeteers, there's a light puppet, there's dancers, then of course the gamelan playing at the same time without seeing what's going on behind the screen. So all of this has to be like visual cues between. And some of the cues, actually, Chesley, who's in the audience here, helped us because he had the monitor, so he could like do hand signals to the people backstage when the musicians were ready for a certain thing. So yeah, there was a lot of back and forth to communicate timing and cues, etc. And then here's a couple other things that Pamuja invented that we added. So we had live water, live fire, live smoke, all thrown into the mix. Like puppetry itself wasn't complicated enough, so we had all these special effects on top of everything, which gave joy to the students, and a lot of anxiety, especially the fire part, to our stage crew, because of course we had special permission from the fire department to even have all these things happen. So yes, and if you have not been backstage, this is kind of a simple graph that I put together of what it looks like in terms of the lights. Situation and how it relates to where the actors are standing. They have to stand in a particular triangle to cast a proper shadow and not more than one, ideally, onto the screen. So, and again, as I mentioned before, actors, when they have a shadow mask on, they cannot look down at the floor to see where the lines are, where the spot marks are, because the shadow you would lose the face of the shadow puppet, right? So people have to really literally feel their way and kind of just memorize exactly where they have to stand, how far they have to walk down stage, etc., to create the proper image. And then, it's just like on the bottom right corner, you just see all the crazy different spike marks that we had to put in there for different kind of scenery placements for different kinds of scenes. And so not only did the actors have to act and sing and dance, but they also had to be moving the scenery. They had to change the slide. They had to do the puppeteering. So everybody was doing everything. And you had to memorize hundreds of cues for each scene. And again, when I explain what Wayang history is like, I say it's like it's shooting a movie in one take from beginning to end, no break, right? So basically everybody has to memorize everything all the way through. Complex kind of technical network. All right, I think that covers most of the elements. So then reception and outreach, maybe I'll wait here until we go to something else, because this is going into the outreach component.
We can come back to we have the video.
Come back to that, but maybe let's just see a little bit of the video.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
One beautiful morning, we hear a lovely voice that seems to belong to a young maiden. The voice we hear belongs to the lovely and mysterious Gusti Ayu Kalen. This river is the home of a water dragon known as Naga Basuki. The teeth of this water dragon have magical powers. One tooth of the water dragon became lost, and it lodged in a piece of driftwood. It was there that it transformed into a magical dagger known as Punchak Sang.
Oh, the fog! My friend, come along! It is harvest time here on our island of Nusa Penida.
Every year, the villagers of Nusa Penida hold a ceremony at their main temple.
Today is an auspicious day for this ceremony. Let's begin our activities without delay.
I am the almighty Dalam Dukut. Behold, the supreme ruler of Nusa Penida. Worship me or perish.
Yes, like I said, this is the last production before COVID-19. So I guess I have a question to all of you, and not so much question. Well, I guess it's a question. I remember trying to, to make sure that Pak Moja turned to California, and also Pak Ketut Wirtawan is going back to Bali. And it's sort of like in this moment, like, on TV, you don't know what's going to happen the next day, where you can fly, you can go out. And in the middle of that, that is when, at the end of the last show of the production. So looking back on that, how exciting, very successful production, but you are in the middle of the pandemic. So I just want to how do you reflection a little bit on that? Would you like to start, Annie?
Yeah, I'd be happy to start. It's interesting because now kind of looking back and reflecting on all these projects over the time, and I know for many other ensembles and organizations as well, it's like this pause point, right? We're kind of still stuck back there. And it was really incredible timing because this production ended end of February 2020. Less than 2 weeks later, everything closed down, as Huyati was saying. Mojo, we had to make sure got back safely. And so weeks later, we couldn't even imagine that we're standing so close to each other and nobody's wearing masks, because we're suddenly in this we're in that new space and time. And so it feels like, speaking of now compared to that time, it just put everything on pause. And so when, we're used to doing such large scale productions, working with so many people, and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of commitment to keep those skills built up. And the gamelan and the dance during the pandemic paused, really. We haven't been rehearsing until again this year now. And so it almost seems impossible to get back there, so it's just such a stark contrast to be going to working together every day, 70 plus people in a day, and then you're kind of stuck in lockdown. Just such a stark contrast.
Well, it was an interesting time, and it was scary. It was mixed together, nothing like this the end of the world, So after the story for the last production called Dalam Dukut, he spelled bad cause, and then suddenly has a big epidemic like this. What did we do? When this thing happens, it's like crazy feelings, like mixing feelings. I was really panicked. So in that moment, just during the show, also when the final show, especially, we just feel like what we did here, So
Yeah, I know, but wartawan made it safe back to Bali, and but it was a screamer. So mungkin Pak Made Widana, bagaimana perasaannya ya setelah begitu sukses, begitu indah, begitu bahagia, tapi tidak bisa ditutup dengan bukan tidak bahagia, tapi ada kekacauan dengan pandemi. Bagaimana perasaannya?
My feeling was after COVID, of course, sad, because we have a good relationship here. We had a community here, Balinese, and then always can we do with dance and music and gamelan, So I was happy, enjoy to learn like that. Even just not Balinese, I think also every community of music and dance, so they are always happy to come to practice and learning. And after that, something happened a bit, like everywhere, So of course, sad and disappointed happened to us. Yeah, and then but right now it's normal back, and then we can do anything. We back to back to our community and enjoy again. We can do it. Yeah.
Anybody would add something? Yeah.
I just add one thing.
Yes.
So my flight's right on the lockdowns. So in that time, so when I flew back in Waikiki, there's nothing. There's because so interesting. I had a picture like, oh, usually so many tourists, so many people, but there's only sand.
Yeah.
I'll just add that the pandemic forced so many of us to hop on into the digital worlds and experimental spaces. We're just reminded that these productions are so much a celebration of the analog wonder and the human excellence that is like so deep into Indonesian artistry and technical excellence, and Southeast Asia at large, where there's always this human element of creation, and even in manufacturing. There's still this, it's very much human centered, and still in the analog world. Of course, there are amazing digital and virtual things coming out of Southeast Asia as well. But the roots here of just, you know, looking at this screen sometimes, think, oh, this would be so much easier as an animation. You know, just I could do that. But what makes it so magical is that it's not, that it takes this well-oiled orchestra of movement and music to produce
The next one that we would like to highlight is the project called Living Legacy. Paintings and performances of pain. And I would like to invite, I know Pak Moja, you have family to the gallery. Your father was here before, and so you have a family connection and you're participating in this. So Annie and Pak Moja, would you like to reflect a little bit on that project? Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
yeah, I got invited by Annie Reno 2013, and since the ballet at night. That times I was part of the production, and then I talked to her. Oh, my dad's been here, so like 1980. I mean 78, 79. So I was thinking to do some exhibition here in. You haven't worked in Sri Center yet, right?
Yeah.
I just have some idea. You know, I would have some exhibition between my dad painting his my piece. So since then we always talking when and where. So we always have some big idea with some exhibition. Fortunately, we do have some exhibition. Because it's supposed to be 2019. We get pushed, and then of course the pandemic get pushed back again another year. And yes, that's happened is 2021.
Fall and spring.
So it turned out, you know, the exhibition is well received here.
Yeah, we really paired all of the paintings. It was almost like a treasure hunt, because it's amazing how many of the paintings from Budi, from Pak Moja's father and Pak Moja's, were in private collections. So we would just be calling and say, oh, do you have a painting from Pak Budi? Oh, do you remember this project from the 1970s? And then what really started to happen was that the pieces that we got were these amazing pairs where somebody would have this painting and it would relate because there was a Mahabharata scene by Pak Budi, one by Pak Moja. And so there were these just beautiful pairings and some paintings that Pak Moja had never seen of his father's work before. Another really special part of the exhibition was that there were 3 works presented by Pak Moja's Pak Budi's granddaughters. So really showing that the tradition and the legacy of the family is continuing. And then the other project kind of during the pandemic, maybe Kirsten can speak to that, the Jaga Alam.
Yes.
Yeah, so through the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, we got a Luz Foundation grant for a 4-year educational project that would take environmental themes and use Balinese puppetry to bring that into local schools. And so the term Jaga Alam, taking care of nature, is kind of the title of this project. And we are currently in year 3. We're developing another story as we speak because we're in rehearsal with Pamoja. But basically, these were things we could develop and give to schools as online materials. So we developed like online teacher guides. We filmed all the productions and made the videos available. And in Mare put together like a little demo video on Balinese music. And so we basically were trying to, okay, well, how can we help teachers kind of make use of the digital environment, give it to students in the class or even for after school programs, or somehow use the time that we're all stuck in this virtual environment. And so in addition to all the online materials, we also did one live show for each of those segments, and we're gonna do another one basically just 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
On April 15th at the Hala Hala Hawaiʻi Society.
I have a question. Maybe for all of you, but maybe Widana and Pamoja. You're working with younger students, right? When you're going to school. So how is that different? Like your student here who know how to dance, maybe not Balinese dance, but then you go to a student who elementary student who has not been exposed to any Balinese dance. Bagaimana itu pengalamannya dengan siswa? Fun or more challenging, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we need I have system step by step, So learning is okay. Follow me. Like we how I was learning or practice in my teacher or my family, just following behind like that. So without like Pamoja said, without asking anything or like Chen said, without asking, just follow me. So process and be patient with process, and then just follow step by step, and then calm every time we practice, and then you're gonna get it.
Yeah, and like young students, fast learner, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Very still empty. Also like gamelan, they learn like that. I have system like that. Okay, how you damping, how you pamol amalet like this, and then listen first melody, and then how to connection when you play interlocking, just the concept with the beat, listen the beat. Also the dance like that. Okay, if you are not counting, if you can understand with the music, when you are counting how many 1 and 2 and 3, probably like that, and then follow that. The movement.
That would be me.
Yeah, for the young audience, when we saw this art form, especially dance and also music, into the class, so at least we have to use show them the movement, like the custom, how and then so usually before the perform, so try to observe what you see and what the unusual movements, and of course most of the kids never see this type of dance performance, and then there has lots of observation, and usually sometimes really a very basic question: why not wearing shoes? Instead, like how you move, like this kind of very interesting. That's a really interesting interactive with the young audience, and then they come up with some amazing idea, like the body movement, and sometimes the student or the young kid, they ask like, I see the connection between feet and the head. It's just connected really together. So sometimes they just try, or sometimes, and they and then we usually end the demo of the performance. We usually ask them to do some movement, also volunteer to do the movement, so they can have some taste of how to learn Balinese dance. I'm sure they never see something like that, you know. So even they don't know where's the Bali. Or sometimes they know Bali, so where's the Indonesia?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so thank you so much. There's gonna be a little bit time for question later on, maybe something from the chat. But Annie, would you like to get a little bit of what is that upcoming program that coming?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's really been exciting is, as Kirsten mentioned, Pak Moja is here for the next installment of Jaga Alam. So that performance is going to be on April 15th over at Hale Halavai at East West Center. And suddenly there's just a lot going on again. It feels like pre-COVID time. And what's been really wonderful is knowing that Pak Moja was going to be coming here and Made was here. Honolulu Theater for Youth reached out, and Made and Moja worked with them on Peter Pan. So that's open through April 23rd. So it's a kind of new version of Peter Pan, but with elements of Balinese shadow theater and Balinese music as well. So that'll be open through April 23rd. And I think they said 20,000 kids across the state are going to be able to see that production. And then for our larger ensemble, our first Balinese dance performance, debuting dancers from pre-pandemic to some of our newer dancers. Our littlest dancers are 3 and 4 years old. We'll be doing ensemble performances at East West Fest on April 16th. So that's from 2 to 6 p.m. So that's a full day of festival and performances and cultural events. So will be a wonderful event to be part of. And then we're being hosted this summer in July. We're in conversation with Asia Pacific Dance Festival for a larger showcase of performance that we're getting ready for. So it'll be July 8th, workshops in music and dance for the community, open to the community. And then on the 9th at East West Center, we'll be having a performance featuring Balinese music and dance. So that'll be kind of our first real return to stage after more than 3 years. Yeah. And I think, Eric, you could also mention one additional production and events, many events happening with Japanese.
So many things happening.
So many things happening.
As was mentioned in the beginning, UHM, the community is lucky to have both Japanese and Balinese gamelan and ensembles. So super excited that the Japanese ensemble will be performing this Saturday, April 1st at 7:30 on the UH Mano campus. And this is gamelan dance and puppetry with 2 guest Japanese master artists, Ki Midiato and Penny Savitri. So this for the Japanese gamelan ensemble is a COVID postponed performance celebrating 50 years of Japanese gamelan in Hawaii. So everybody please come and celebrate together. It'll be a wonderful performance this Saturday.
Great. Mahalo. Thank you, Eric.
So, can I say one more thing?
Please.
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah, the Japanese gamelan has been performing for 50 years, but I think it's thanks to the vision of Barbara Smith, who felt that students at the University of Hawaii should be exposed to cultures from Asia and the Pacific and work tirelessly to support these ensembles. And she is one of the reasons why the Japanese gamelan is here. And through Rick, we got a wonderful teacher, Harjo Susilo, who not only taught Javanese music, but was also a great supporter of Balinese music. And we have had a long history of Balinese performances here in Hawaii. And I think it's through their vision And the other thing I would like to say is you mentioned that your group is made up of a lot of community members. The reason the Javanese gamelan has been performing for so long is that it is made up of community members that support the gamelan. And believe it or not, we have a wonderful Indonesian community here, much larger than people suspect. And they are very supportive of both the Javanese and the Balinese gamelan. So we are very, very fortunate.
I have to tell you that Ibu Rusman, who turned 93 a couple of days ago, will be in the audience on April 1st. And so she'll be there. She's
and she told me she used to be a Balinese dancer.
I would like to entertain, if you have a question, or maybe if we have something through the chat. No? Okay, yes.
So I would like to, from your experience, can you share how do young generation appreciate gamelan or wayang? How is it different in each region? So you have experiences in Bali or in Java, and here in Hawaii or in the US. And do you have also what are your approaches or strategies in attracting young audiences to engage in just watching the performance and also engage with them in participating with your show?
Well, I think one approach is to really get them started early. That's why we're doing all these school outreach performances and lecture demonstrations and workshops. So trying to get young children already like open to new experiences and interested and curious about art forms from around the world. I think that's the way to go. It's like the early education outreach, and then continue that through middle school, high school.
In Bali, for the young audience, actually they had to participate, not just watching. And then in Bali, more like a performance, always involved with a ritual or festival. So the kids or the parent, they want the kid involved with that process. So they start with dance or play music. They start really young. So this has become of like how we introduce them to the cultures and arts.
Any other question? Yes, Patrick, silakan.
Thanks very much for the panel and the nice sort of like a historical overview of what's going on and what's coming. I have a question about wayang listrik in Bali. What has been the reaction? Because essentially wayang listrik was kind of like an overseas development. And so has it been, quote, re-imported to Bali, or what has been the reaction in Bali itself to this kind of innovative form?
Wayang listrik actually is wayang listrik has been dance, wayang and listriks. But when they bring it to Bali, so that I know is Larry Reid. So he brought the art form like wayang, different kind of form using electricity. So they call wayang listrik using electricity. Not just one light. We have this two different light source, 2, 3, 4, or even more, and then using big scale of screens, and then also using traditional puppets, and even the actor, we use the actors, and it just become known as wayang listrik. And he said maybe the term maybe could be modern wayangs, and just in that moment, we use electricity instead of use flames. That's become like well-known wayang listrik. Everybody think they're using big screens. So.
And sometimes, sorry.
There's one artist in Bali, Pak Sidia, that actually really works a lot with this more modern, larger screen wayang listrik style. And he has now integrated computer projections and all kinds of other new innovations that he's added to this new form. So it's definitely developing also in Bali.
Can I follow up a question for Pak Moja about that? How is it wayang listrik accepted among the Balinese. Like, sometime in Indonesia, when you introduce something like that, I say, oh, tidak authentic, it's not traditional. This is, is that kind of a conversation like that?
Yeah, at first they have some conversation because it's new things and new art forms, and I think that's they're really interesting because like such a small wayang, and now it's become a big screen, you can project a big screen, and also collaboration, not just one puppeteer, not just one dalang, and can be multiple puppeteers, and also the voicing. Sometimes, even though you're not using your own voice, you just hold the character, somebody voicing. So this is part of this really interesting wayang district. They're kind of very popular. The problem I think that I'm seeing is because we find a good space in a really dark room, it's really wide space. I think this is the hardest find is a place to perform in Bali because you need inside space. Usually the wayang, regular wayang, we perform outside and also nighttime.
Yeah, so you see a lot of contemporary work happening at the Art Institute in Denpasar. So that's one of the main places where you're seeing more of this kind of wayang literate take different form too. So you wouldn't see it going back into the temple necessarily. So it really speaks to the different contexts of where the innovations are happening.
Yeah. Any more comment? Yes, I think we are on time. Before, I just want to once again thank you, Pak Ricardo Tremilos, for being here today. And it's an honor to have you in the audience. You're very instrumental in bringing this wonderful instrument to this university. Once again, I want to thank Center for Southeast Asian Studies and this wonderful staff who helped us put this together. Hybrid, it's quite challenging, and so thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
And thank you for sharing.